Hello everyone. Today we are going to use our book class in a little more dynamic of a way. So we're going to create a list of books and then work with our grid view here. We'll be able to click these two buttons here and update our grid view, and we'll see how useful it is to have the list of books and how the book class makes it very easy to interact with these controls. So first thing I'd like to do is a little bit of preemptive work. The ID column is just going to be a bunch of zeros, so Browsable false will make this, using the component model, will make this not show in our data grid view. So we're just going to do that real quick. And that's everything that we're going to modify in the book.cs file here. But now what I'd like to do is start writing the code that we're going to need. So let's create a list of books. We're going to just call it books and list of book. And I think I need the new. There we go. And now we're going to use this data that we have from our CSV file here. I am not going to write out all that code. I am going to grab the code I have written already. And we're going to populate this book's so you'll see that it has the exact same format. We got To Kill a Mockingbird, Harper Lee Fiction, and we're we're building this in the constructor here, and we're populating these three fields here in our book class using this constructor we have here. Available is true by default, and ID we'll be using later. So this will populate our books list. And after we populate our books list, this happens all on form load, we are able to do something really easy with our grid view, which is DataGridView books here. I'm going to copy the name, but we can just assign the data source, which is the information that it possesses, to our list of books here. And that will populate our grid view with all of that data. It's great. Now you'll notice the grid view is only doing that. We haven't set up the grid view to do anything else, but you'll see that it has everything that we've shown here on the left. The next thing we're going to do is we want to toggle this is available with these buttons here. So that's actually a pretty easy next step. So the first thing we need to consider is the row that we're clicking on the grid view. You could also consider cell, but we're going to use row for this example. So data grid view, books, current row, and we just want to make sure it's not null. So make sure the person actually has a row selected. Now if the person has a row selected, we are going to copy that, and we're going to use the current row, and DataBoundItem here as book. So it's going to, you can see here it says object. So this DataGridView row can be considered a lot of different. Object is much more like a placeholder, and it can be considered many different types of variables. Here we are typecasting it to a book. We know it's a book because we saved it as books. So that allows us to pull it back out as a single book. Very nice and seamless process. And then we're going to do the same function that we did earlier, which is selected book and reserve. Oh, we're doing the return book right here, which is fine, because the code is going to be all the same with just that method being switched out. And then the last thing we need to do is just update, refresh, data bind the grid view. Just refresh so that when this function runs, which we've done earlier, it's going to change that piece of information. Now all of this code can be repeated here because we're going to be doing the same thing when we click the reserve button. We want to check if the current row is not null, make sure they have something selected. We could do an else statement if we want to tell the user, hey, you haven't selected anything. That would be a good thing to consider. But the last thing that we need to do is we need to change this reserve book right here to be return book. We're going to call the other method here, reserve book method and return book method. So our reserve book button click is going to reserve a book, and our return book button click will return the book. And then we just refresh, which will update the grid view. Otherwise, the grid view won't look like it's changing. Cool, so our data loads, and I want to reserve 1984. And we see this has already been toggled, and it toggles back. So now we're using our grid view to update the data inside the grid view, and specific to this book. This is a very easy and seamless way to use a book class to start working with grid view data. And it's also shows how seamless it is to use a list to update the control. We use a list of books to update the control, and with just a little bit of code, we get a lot of functionality out of our application here. Because once we have is available, once we're able to toggle data inside of here, then we can start looking at building on that. Once data starts changing, maybe other parts of the program do certain things. But we'll save that for another time. And I think that covers everything I'd like to show in this video. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.